What was it in a 1-2-3 punch between 11,000 and 7,400 and 3,800 BCE transformed primitive nomadic hunters and gatherers into farmers and potters, and then into city builders, engineers, mathematicians, astronomers, metallurgists, merchants, musicians, judges, doctors, authors, librarians, and priests, after hundreds of thousands, or even millions of years of painfully slow human development? One might go farther and raise an even more fundamental question, which is, why did it happen at all? This is brilliantly put forth by Professor Robert Braidwood in his book, Prehistoric Men. The Sumerians, who were responsible for unexpected emergence of this sophisticated civilization, were prepared with an explanation. According to one of the tens of thousands of ancient Mesopotamian inscriptions that have been discovered, whatever seems beautiful, we produced by the grace of the gods. Sumerian gods. Who were they? Were the Sumerian gods similar to the Greek gods, who were said to have a lavish court and feast in the great hall of Zeus in the skies, also known as Olympus, which had its counterpart on earth in the form of Greece's highest peak, Mount Olympus? Greek mythology saw the gods as anthropomorphic, physically resembling mortal men and women, and human in nature. They could experience joy, rage, and jealousy. They could make love, argue, and fight, and they produced similarly to humans, having sex either with one another or with people. Despite being unreachable, they were always involved in human problems. They had weapons of incredible and extraordinary power. They were capable of moving at incredible speeds and could appear and vanish. Rituals of worship and offerings to the gods were meant to win their favor, since each had unique functions, and as a result, a particular human activity may suffer from or benefit from the attitude of the god responsible for that activity. Zeus, the father of gods and men and master of the celestial fire, served as the main deity of ancient Greece. The thunderbolt was his main weapon and emblem. He was an earthly king who had descended from the heavens. He was a decision maker and the source of good and bad for mortals, though his original realm was in the sky. The Greeks believed that after chaos, Gaia, Earth, and her husband, Uranus, the skies, arrived. They combined theology and cosmology to create what scholars now refer to as a mythology. The 12 Titans, comprised of 6 males and 6 females, were created by Gaia and Uranus. It is considered that they had astral counterparts, even if their legendary feats appear to have taken place on Earth. The youngest male Titan, Kronos, became the main character in Olympian mythology. After castrating his father Uranus, he usurped the position of power among the Titans. Kronos imprisoned and exiled the other Titans because he was afraid of them. He would share his father's destiny and be overthrown by one of his own sons, according to the curse of his mother. Kronos had affairs with his own sister Rhea, who gave birth to Hades, Poseidon, and Zeus, as well as Hestia, Demeter, and Hera. Once more, it was destined that the younger son would be the one to overthrow his father, and when Zeus overthrew Kronos, his father, the curse of Gaia was fulfilled. It appears that this overthrow was not easy to pull off. The gods and several horrific monsters engaged in battle for countless years. Zeus and Typhon, a serpent-like deity, engaged in the final fight. This conflict took place in the skies and over a sizable portion of the surface of the earth. Apparently, somewhere in the Sinai Peninsula, the last fight took place at Mount Cassius, close to the border between Egypt and Arabia. Zeus emerged from this conflict as the most important deity. He had to, however, delegate authority to his brothers. Zeus was granted control of the skies by the drawing of lots. Hades was given the lower world, and Poseidon was given control of the waters. Although, over time, Hades and his realm came to be synonymous with hell, his original kingdom was a place deep below that included marshlands, barren terrain, and lands that were fed by powerful rivers. The image of Hades was that of the unseen, aloof, severe, and forbidding, unaffected by prayer or sacrifice. On the other side, Poseidon was commonly seen holding up his emblem, the trident. He was a skilled magician or conjurer, in addition to being the king of the oceans. He was also master of the arts of metallurgy and sculpture. Poseidon was seen as a god who went to considerable lengths to win the favor of mankind, in contrast to Zeus, who was portrayed in Greek tradition and legend as being strict, and even as one who plotted to annihilate mankind. The oldest members of the Olympian Circle, the collection of the 12 great gods, were the 3 brothers and their 3 sisters, all offspring of Cronus via his sister Rhea. The Greek myths largely focused on the genealogies and relationships of the other 6, who were all Zeus's children. Zeus fathered both male and female deities, and many goddesses were their mothers. Zeus had a daughter, the renowned goddess Athena, whom he conceived while initially in a relationship with the goddess Metis. She was the goddess of wisdom, in charge of common sense and craftsmanship, but because Athena was the only significant deity to have remained with Zeus during his battle with Typhon, all the other gods had fled, she developed martial skills and became known as the goddess of war. Although she was the ideal maiden and never married, some legends regularly connect her to her uncle Poseidon. Although his official consort was the Lady of the Labyrinth from the island of Crete, Athena, his niece, served as Poseidon's lover. After that, Zeus had affairs with other goddesses, but their offspring were not eligible for the Olympian Circle. Zeus turned to one of his own sisters when the time came to get down to business and create a male heir. Hestia was the oldest. Zeus didn't need much of an excuse to focus on Demeter, the middle sister and goddess of fruitfulness, because she was a recluse, and possibly too elderly or ill to have been the subject of many marriage activities. However, instead of a boy, she gave birth to Persephone, who later married her uncle Hades and shared control of the lower world with him. Zeus went to other goddesses for solace and affection after learning he would not have a son. He had 9 daughters with Harmonia. Then Leto gave birth to Apollo and Artemis, who were immediately accepted into the pantheon of prominent deities. One of the most powerful deities in the Hellenic pantheon, Apollo was Zeus's eldest son and dreaded by both gods and humans. He served as his father Zeus' representative to mortals, acting as the supreme authority in matters of religion and temple worship. He stood for sanctification and perfection, both spiritually and physically, representing moral and heavenly laws. Hermes, the patron saint of shepherds and keeper of flocks and herds, was Zeus' second son and the child of the goddess Maia. He was closer to human concerns and less significant and powerful than his brother Apollo. Any good fortune was attributed to him. He was the patron deity of traders and travelers, since he was the giver of good things, the god in charge of business. His primary function in myth and epic, however, was as Zeus's herald and messenger of the gods. Due to dynastic customs, Zeus still needed a son from one of his sisters, so he chose the youngest, Hera. Zeus made her the mother goddess after marrying her according to the rituals of sacred marriage. A son named Ares and 2 daughters were the blessing of their union. But Zeus's unfaithfulness and Hera's alleged adultery disrupted it, raising questions about the true parents of another son, named Hephaestus. Ares was immediately designated Zeus' chief lieutenant and god of war. He was also added to the Olympian circle of 12 important gods. Although he was portrayed as the spirit of carnage, he was far from indestructible. When fighting on the side of the Trojans in the Battle of Troy, he sustained a wound that could only be treated by Zeus. On the other hand, Hephaestus had to struggle to gain entry to the Olympian top. He was a god of creativity. Metallurgy and forging fire were attributed to him. He was a divine craftsman who created both useful and magical items for gods and humans. According to legend, his mother Hera was furious because he was born lame and sent him away. Another, more plausible account claims that Zeus banished Hephaestus due to questions about his parentage. But Hephaestus used his magically creative abilities to persuade Zeus to restore him to the ranks of the great gods. According to tradition, Hephaestus allegedly created an invisible net that would close over his wife's bed if an unauthorized lover warmed it. Given that Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty, was his wife and consort, he may have needed such defense. It was only logical that many stories of romantic relationships would develop around her. In many of these stories, Ares, Hephaestus' brother, served as the seducer. Eros, the god of love, was one of the descendants of that unrequited love affair. The circumstances surrounding Aphrodite's membership in the Olympian Circle of 12 provides insight into our subject. She was neither Zeus's sister nor his child, but that did not make her any less important. She had traveled to Greece from the Asian borders of the Mediterranean. The Greek poet Hesiod suggested she arrived via Cyprus. And she claimed to be very old, attributing her ancestry to Uranus's genitalia. She represented the castrated forefather of the gods and was therefore genetically one generation older than Zeus, being, in a matter of speaking, a sister from his father. Therefore, Aphrodite had to be counted among the Olympian deities. However, it seems that their total number of 12 could not be exceeded. A clever solution was to increase by reducing. Aphrodite was awarded a seat in the elite circle of 12 when Hades, who was given control over the lower world, left a position among the great gods on Mount Olympus. There could be neither more nor fewer than 12 Olympians, suggesting that this number 12 was a condition that applied both ways. This is demonstrated by the events that led to Dionysus' induction into the Olympian circle. Zeus's own daughter Semele was the mother of this Zeus-born child. Dionysus, who had to be protected from Hera's anger, was exiled to distant places, including India, bringing vine-growing and wine-making with him. A position opened up in Olympus in the interim. Hestia, Zeus's oldest sister and the oldest and weakest member of the Circle of 12, was completely removed. Following his return to Greece, Dionysus was given permission to fill this vacancy. In terms of the heroes of humanity, Greek mythology was ambiguous, but heroes and kings were said to have descended from the gods according to legend and tradition. These demigods served as a link between the glorious past, when only the gods inhabited the earth, and the fate of humanity, daily labor, dependency on the elements, plague, illness, and death. The chosen circle of 12 Olympians also stood in for the celestial element of the gods, despite the fact that so many of the gods were born on earth. The Odyssey claimed that the first Olympus was situated in pure, higher air. The original 12 great gods symbolized the 12 heavenly bodies in the vault of heaven and were gods of heaven who descended to earth. The Latin names of the great gods, given to them by the Romans, adopting the Greek pantheon, clarify their astral association. Gaia was earth, Hermes Mercury, Aphrodite Venus, Ares Mars, Kronos Saturn, and Zeus Jupiter. Continuing the Greek tradition, the Romans envisioned Jupiter as a thundering god whose weapon was the lightning bolt. Like the Greeks, the Romans associated him with the bull. There's now widespread consensus that the island of Crete, where the Minoan civilization thrived from around 2700 to 1400 BCE, served as the foundation for the distinctive Greek civilization. The Minotaur myth and folklore are well known in Minoan culture. This half-man, half-bull creature was the product of King Minos' wife, Pasiphae, and a bull. The extensive Minoan worship of the bull has been proven by archaeological artifacts, and several cylinder seals show the bull as a divine figure accompanied by a cross sign that represents an unknown star or planet. Therefore, it has been hypothesized that the bull that Minoans worshipped was not a typical terrestrial animal, but rather the celestial bull, or Taurus, in remembrance of several occasions when the sun's spring equinox appeared in that constellation, about 4000 BCE. According to Greek mythology, Zeus traveled from Crete to the Greek mainland by swimming the Mediterranean Sea after kidnapping Europa, the lovely daughter of the ruler of the Phoenician city of Tyre. In fact, Cyrus H. Gordon's ultimate decipherment of the earliest Minoan alphabet revealed it to be a Semitic dialect from the beaches of the eastern Mediterranean. Gods descended immediately from heaven to Greece. Zeus landed via Crete after traveling across the Mediterranean. According to legend, Aphrodite traveled from the Near East to Cyprus via sea. The horse was transported with Poseidon, Neptune to the Romans, from Asia Minor. From those locations mentioned in the Bible, Athena delivered the olive, fertile and self-sown, to Greece. It's undeniable that Greek culture and religion originated in the Near East and were brought to the Greek mainland via the Mediterranean islands and Asia Minor. Their pantheon had its origins there, and this is where we should seek to learn more about the history of the Greek gods and their symbolic connection to the number 12.